Hi textile buddies, I'm Darya, textile and surface pattern designer and painter. On this channel we talk all things textile, pattern, color and artwork. Patterns are everywhere, but you know it if you are subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please do so right now and like this video if you find the topic useful or interesting. Today let's talk about artist agents and agencies. I'll give you the brief rundown on what they do, on the requirements for an artist to be represented by an agent, the pros and cons of having one, and of course, my experience meeting with agents and talking to them. I have never been represented by an agent, but I had 2 paid portfolio reviews by 2 well-known agents, and last year I had a period when I was seeking representation, but I didn't succeed. If you want to hear that story, make sure to watch it until the end and also like this video, subscribe, but I already said that. But here's another reminder. I'm almost done editing my first textile design class. Hopefully it will be up on Skillshare by the time this video is up, possibly on my website as well, or maybe other sites if everything goes well, because I know sometimes there are hiccups on Skillshare, like they will tell you, oh, you're using the wrong audio codec or something like that. So fingers crossed, let's hope everything goes well. I finished editing it first. It's a lot of work. I'm using a lot of slides and examples in my videos because we are visual artists, right? I'll keep you posted when the class is up. I will announce it here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, my website. The first class is a super in-depth look into the business of surface pattern design, into the kinds of patterns, the software, supplies needed, commercial art categories, where the creation process starts, and so much more. Stay tuned. So let's get to business. Who is an artist agent? What do they do? As you can probably guess, they represent artists in front of clients. They are the messenger, so to say. They show your artwork to retail clients, corporations, publishing houses, and so on. It could be either online on a password-protected website or by traveling to the company's headquarters, or very often at the trade shows such as Print Source, Blueprint and Certex. Agents send newsletters to clients promoting new art their artists made, negotiate pricing and licensing terms on your behalf, collect payments, and also give you creative direction, advising on what to draw next, what is trending now, or what clients are in need of. For these marvelous services, they take a cut of your pay, their commission, which is a standard practice. That's how they earn money. There are 3 kinds of agents, I would say: illustration, product design agents, which include surface pattern design, and fine art publishing. Illustration is usually focused on children's books or editorial illustration, such as magazine or blog articles. Illustration is a world of its own, but very often surface pattern design stems from illustration. Some agents represent both illustrators and designers. It's not uncommon at all. We as surface pattern designers are mostly interested in the second type of art agents, of course, those who represent artists and designers who create commercial art for products such as greeting cards, I have a couple here, notebooks, packaging, puzzles, and so on. Before we discuss this type in detail, let me briefly touch on the third type, the fine art publishing and licensing. These are companies that represent a more old-school traditional art that you can see as wall art, posters, and so on. It can sometimes cross over to other products as well. It depends on the company. Penny Lane is a good example of this type of an art agent. Now let's go deeper in discussing the art agents who offer art for product development, including surface pattern and textile designs. I'd say it's quite rare that agents only want your repeating patterns. It's quite on the contrary, actually. Patterns are often seen as secondary. First of all, you as an artist should have a strong art style, and as you might know from my videos, any motifs and separate elements can be turned into a repeating pattern. When presenting new art, very often the pattern doesn't have to be an actual repeat. It only looks like it. They call it implied repeat, even though having the skills of putting patterns in repeat are definitely a huge plus. What are agents looking for in an artist? First and foremost, number one, marketability. I was just editing my lesson in the class about it, and I don't know how many times I've said this word. Marketability means strong potential for commercial success. The artwork should be very appealing to the main audience, decorative, positive, uplifting, cheerful, well drawn, often super decorative, so that the agent can immediately see it with a particular customer group in a particular market. Greeting cards are a huge category, and that's why being good at lettering is pretty much a must, even though they can make an exception if your artwork is especially good for a different product category. But they will most likely try to push it on you to try lettering later on. I follow several artists and their agents, and I often see how they start with signature florals, for example, but a few months later I notice, oh, they made her draw a book cover or a greeting card with lettering. It often looks a little clumsy at first, but who am I to judge? I am not good at lettering. I've made some attempts at it, but it didn't stick and I really don't enjoy doing it. Number two, a strong, recognizable style is very desirable for an agent so that they can market you to clients and they all know what to expect from you. Number three, being professional, observing the deadlines, communicating clearly. All these things are also expected from you as an artist, of course. Sometimes the agent lets you work directly with a customer on a project. Sometimes it's otherwise. Everything has to go through the agent. It depends on the agent, it depends on the client. So for example, your agent connects you to Hallmark and you are designing greeting cards for them. You might be emailing Hallmark directly and they would say things like, can you make the lettering bigger, and something like that. That's a totally random made-up example. Number four desirable thing, being highly skilled at software is required. You might be a great painter, but if you don't know how to process your art on the computer, it most likely will be a deal breaker, because you should know how to get your artwork almost production ready, meaning scanned, cleaned up, adjusted brightness, and so on. Number five, agents usually have some sort of number requirements. For example, 10 pieces of artwork per week. It differs from agent to agent, but it's usually quite fast-paced and you have to be able to consistently make new art. And number six, being prolific and successful at holiday designs is mandatory, particularly in Christmas. Is it easy to find an agent? No, it is not. It is quite competitive, and especially well-established agents usually have 10, 20, 50 or 100 artists they represent, and they will only add you to their pool of designers if they feel really strongly about your artwork. Why might you get rejected? It's either because they already have someone with a very similar aesthetic, or your artwork is too niche and they don't see it appealing to a large audience. That would be me. Very often agents have a trial period, 6 months or a year, when you both are trying things out. They might also charge you a fee for it, more on it later. The way it works, they start taking your artwork and showing to clients, for example at print shows, and seeing if there is any interest for your art. They can see, oh, it should work out, and then they will sign you on a constant basis. But if within the trial period your art is not gaining any interest among clients, you might not be a good match with this particular agent and their clientele. Because if you look closer at agents and the artists they represent, you can usually get the feel of what sort of products they work for. And that's another important requirement, that your art should fit with their aesthetic. And if it doesn't, it does not necessarily mean your art is bad. It's probably just not your agent. But let's be honest, it could mean that your art isn't commercially ready yet. There are smaller boutique agencies and large ones with hundreds of artists. It's something to be aware of, because you might not get the same treatment in these two kinds of agencies. What are the pros of being represented by an agent? Well, of course, it's the possibility to focus more on making artwork and having someone else handle the nitty-gritty business stuff that can be pretty daunting. They will chase royalties for you, they will handle legal stuff if someone tries to steal your artwork, God forbid, and they write contracts, often with a lawyer. Another giant plus is that agents usually have a huge contact list and insider connections, and it's way easier for an agent to get your artwork in front of the client's eyes than if you tried it yourself. It does not mean it's impossible, it's just harder. Having art direction can be seen as a pro as well. Agents will direct you on what kind of art is in more demand, so if you are ever at a creative loss, they will help you out. What about the cons? First, agents take a commission, and it can be quite steep, 40% or even higher. That's almost half of the payment. Second, having an agent won't guarantee that your art will sell. They show it to clients, but it might not get picked. Third, you are under a commitment to make lots of new art, and some agencies have very high expectations. Many artists work on several income streams even when they have an agent, because as you might know, royalties and payments don't come right away. You can get them even a year or later after the project was completed. So imagine producing a large amount of new artwork every week and also trying to balance, for example, having an art print shop or going to art and craft fairs locally to sell your products, or maintaining an Etsy shop. It's quite a lot of work. Also, we looked at the art direction as a positive thing, but it can be viewed negative as well. And for me personally, it's the problem because I really dislike lettering. Do you know I don't like lettering? Did I say it? And doing lots of Christmas art. Like, I have my tolerance for Christmas, but it's very low. Another disadvantage is that the agency is the middleman. So there can be some misunderstanding or miscommunication with the client. Or how do you even know they work hard enough to promote your artwork? I've read such comments often in designer groups when people say, hey, it's been 6 months since I signed up with an agent and still no contract. Sometimes they don't answer emails or keep telling you, oh yeah, we are trying, we're working hard on promoting your art. But you still have to also promote your artwork on your own beyond that and do other income streams. I think only a handful of artists get so successful and busy that they don't have these issues. So answering the question, does having an agent guarantee you success? No, it does not. I've seen artists leave agents and change agents. A relationship can go bad. It's like with any other employer. This next question is, does it mean that you've made it if you have an agent? Does it validate you as an artist? Is it the ultimate validation? Sometimes if you see it on Instagram, an artist is represented by an agent, it gives you the tingle of envy, like they're better than everyone else. But let me tell you, having an agent is just one form of working in commercial design. There are very successful artists and designers and illustrators who have never had an agent and don't need one. It's just a way of operating. It does not make anyone better than everybody else. It might work or not work for you personally, for your personality, for your work goals, and so on. How can you find art agents? I'll give you a short list of agents to check out. And by going to their Instagram page, you can see artists whom they represent. And if you check people they follow, you might also find more agents there. You can also see some agents on the exhibitors list of print shows like Surtex. But you are going to have to do your homework and search for agents and agencies that fit your needs best. No one can do this work for you. Some design communities also sell lists of art directors and agents for a small fee. Surface Design News is an Instagram account that I think does it. I will leave some info here. But honestly, good old Father Google will do the job for you. It's just a matter of how much time and effort you're willing to put in. Now, as for my story of interacting with agents, I'll tell you about my personal encounters with agents from different perspectives. I first met a few art agents at Print Source, a print show in New York, where I went as a visitor shortly after graduating from college in textile design. I honestly didn't even know what exactly I was doing there. My professor just suggested this idea and I went, and it was a good idea. Because normally people go there either as exhibitors, and the art agents and print studios would be those, or as the clients or visitors, meaning people who buy or license artwork. And I was sort of neither, because I was just getting a taste of the industry, looking around, gathering contacts, observing, and so on. To give you a little bit of context, many people perceived me there as a solicitor because I wasn't exhibiting and I wasn't buying. So people reacted accordingly. Some people were more welcoming. They understood that I was fresh out of college and was just learning. I wasn't trying to sabotage their business. I always stepped aside when actual customers came up. But in general, the ambience was quite competitive and tense there. So I just came up to exhibitors and chatted, explained my situation, asked for advice, and so on. I should say that I felt very uncomfortable doing it. I kind of felt like an imposter, intruder. So I remember there was a very rude agent. She literally told me she was not in the mood that day, that was her words, and basically to get out of there. Another agent though was very professional. She asked me if I was looking for a presentation, gave me a business card, and told me to send my portfolio over. I honestly don't remember any of their names. Another one, before I even said something, pulled out a book and wrote down my email before I opened my mouth even. No, it doesn't make any sense, right? But you know what I mean. That's a great idea to collect emails for your newsletter. The next time I encountered art agents was about a year later, when I already got my in-house design job. Agents would stop by the office to show artists artwork. They would say, hey, I'm in the area, can I stop by and show you some new art? And usually the design managers would be slightly irritated because they were super busy, you know, and preferred to mostly see art at the print shows that take place several times a year, or just go through the online gallery. But from the perspective of the artist whose agent is soliciting in a way to push their artwork, I would love my agent to be a little pushy like that. Then, after I had worked in-house for several years and was moonlighting, you know, creating my own artwork on the side in free time, I was sort of lost creatively and decided to get professional advice and bought a portfolio review for the first time. The background story is that I had always been very creative and had lots of ideas and was making all sorts of very different artwork, being pulled in many directions, you know, seeing what we were working on in-house, hearing that you need to narrow down in all the videos, then making, you know, what I personally found inspiring, and very often it would be really whimsical and quirky designs. And also painting in watercolor on top of that, trying my hand in lettering, and so on and so forth. So I was looking for some clarity and purchased a portfolio review by a well-known UK art agent. It was about $650 in conversion, which was expensive even back then, even with my steady paycheck. But I was really excited for it because I was in a bit of a creative crisis and I really needed some professional insight and a look from a distance. I chose that particular agent because she was representing an artist who I felt drew inspiration from the same sources that I did. And I also had secret hopes that she would offer to represent me. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I had to schedule 3 months in advance, as she was and is a busy agent. I was super anxious and prepared very thoroughly. She sent me a PDF on what to expect and what to prepare. So I sent her my Instagram and portfolio links and also some files via Dropbox or something like that. I believe she said something like pick 10 of your favorite pieces of each, you know, and I actually created quite a few new pieces for that review specifically. I wanted to show her my range, so I included different styles and products, explored some new ideas. I was like, I can do this, and I think I could do that. I tried lettering. Spoiler alert, she did not like it. It is not my strongest suit, I have to admit. She also sent me a questionnaire, something like, how can you describe your style? What do you want to be known for? What is the single most important question you want me to answer for you? What words do describe your artwork the best? In general, she put a lot of emphasis on words. I'll elaborate more on it later. She also included a task that was not mandatory but was sort of very encouraged, and it was to illustrate yourself and your interests so she can get to know you better. I had to sweat quite a lot on that one. In general, I struggled quite a bit with this whole review thing as I took it very seriously. It was a matter of life and death for me. I had high expectations for it. I wanted answers, okay? So the review lasted about an hour and a half, and she recorded everything, and I actually didn't have the courage to rewatch it for quite a while. It was very emotional for me because I guess subconsciously I expected a lot of praise, but the general feedback was that there was a lot of work to be done. She did say a lot of great things as well, but I was a bit disappointed because her main critique was that I do too many different things. And she kept reiterating this point, whereas I would have loved answers to more concrete questions such as, how do I transition from being an in-house designer to an independent artist? How can I make a living like that? How long is that going to take? All these super important questions were sort of crammed in the last 10 minutes because she kept on talking about the necessity to narrow down. And if you watched my videos about niching down and scanner personality, you probably already know how I feel about it. And she also seemed to have missed the point that I had a full-time designer job at the time, which I did mention several times. So the first emotion I felt when the review was over was anger. I was very angry because in my mind, being versatile was a good thing, but she almost scolded me for it. That did not feel nice at all. But as time passed, I realized it was a good review, and she gave me a lot of great advice. And also having another review with a different agent 3 years later, I could compare it to something else, and that first one was a good review. My most important takeaway from that review was that I needed to get way more intentional and careful with how I shared things online, because as the agent said, I was asking people to get lost in 50 different worlds, posting, for example, playful vector artwork next to watercolor florals and so on. I actually have a design with bananas tossed on pink background, and somehow it's selling really well as wallpaper in my Spoonflower shop. It's completely random, it's completely different from what I normally do, but it is still a bestseller, and it was selling well back then. And I had it posted on my Instagram next to some kind of watercolor, and she was so mad about it. She's like, this banana wallpaper is so bad, like you need to delete this post from Instagram. I did delete the post, yes, I agree, maybe it didn't look that nice, but I didn't delete it from my shop, and I'm so glad I didn't because it's one of my huge bestsellers. I'm telling you this in order to share that even if somebody with authority, with experience tells you something, you should still listen to yourself and still, make your own conclusions. She was also putting a lot of emphasis on using words to describe artwork. She said, pick 5 words that describe your ideal work, put them on the wall, and every time you sit down to make new art, make sure it falls within, the feel of these words. I tried doing it, but in the end, I don't think it worked as well for me. Maybe because I have several different styles. In terms of those big questions that I was asking, like how to transition into being a freelancer, she said I could combine licensing, selling original art to frame, and selling products like pillows on my website, using Fashion Formula as the vendor, which is a UK-based website that recently got renamed to Make, I think with AA. And I live in the United States, so I would have appreciated maybe if she had given me more names, more vendors. In terms of how long it's going to take to be successful, she said 2-3 years of full-time work. And I'm just sharing, this information with you. I'm not trying to judge her or anything. I would like to also say that these are very difficult questions to answer, and the answers will differ a lot depending on each particular artist, their style, their areas of expertise, and so on. And just for statistics, I have been doing art full-time now as a freelancer for 2.5 years, and I still haven't reached the point where I can fully support myself and my family with my artwork. I am not saying it to defy the art agent or say that it's impossible. It's just to share my experience and to keep your expectations realistic. Maybe some artists make it even sooner than in 2 years, but for me it hasn't been the case, just for the record. She was also recommending me to create separate shops on Spoonflower for different styles of artwork, which in the end I did not do. She also advised to create a new Instagram account from scratch and start posting art that I was 100% proud of. The future me, so to say. I didn't do it either, and I'm actually not regretting it at all, because I know for a fact how hard it is to grow a new account from scratch and how challenging it is to take care of several accounts, because I do happen to have multiple accounts for some of my other hobbies, and the constant thought process on, oh my, what should I post next on all of my accounts, keeping it all consistent, it's daunting, it's a lot of work. But like I mentioned, I did start to edit more strictly. I'm trying not to post things that completely don't belong and don't represent me as an artist and don't do me justice. I also revamped my portfolio online after the review, and it took several months. It's a lot of work. Another lesson I learned after this portfolio review was that showing too much is definitely overwhelming. And I also learned it again from the other side, when sometime later I was asked by my alma mater, UMass, University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, to do a portfolio review for 2 graduates from the textile design department. So I had to do the work that the art agent did for me and look through 2 portfolios. And so there was this girl whose portfolio, it was great, she was really hardworking. She had a lot of designs, and I could relate to her because I could recognize myself in it. She was trying to post everything she had online, trying to show that she can do this and this and this and that, but unfortunately it's not necessary. It's going to overwhelm people, and no one is going to go into 5 of your subfolders. Everything should be clean, easy to access, and take out designs that don't do you justice as an artist. She also had some great illustrations, but they were hidden somewhere, like you had to push 5 buttons to see those illustrations. But on her homepage she had very simple repeat patterns like this stripe I have here. And I'm like, why are you putting this on your homepage? This is not your strongest work. And she's like, but I want to show that I can make repeating patterns. But she was great, it was a real pleasure to look at her portfolio. But yes, I definitely realized that when we try to show too much, it can overwhelm people. And art agents and directors, they don't have much time. They're not going to look through your 15 folders. But with that being said, my portfolio is still quite big. I still have folders, and yeah, it's a balance. It's always editing out, taking out what doesn't belong is a necessary skill for a designer. Now back to the art agent who reviewed my portfolio. She also offered a follow-up review in a few months. That was also for a fee, a little bit less, than the initial consultation. I did not do it, partially because I did not fulfill all her recommendations. I did not narrow down very successfully at the time. I kept doing it though. And in general, within these few years, her agency grew significantly, and they started offering a lot of paid services for artists and also drawing challenges where they encourage artists to make new art, tag the agency for a chance to be featured in their stories. I know it's becoming a standard practice for many big names, and sometimes it can be a chance to get noticed, but also be aware that they profit off of it the most. Artists spur their engagement, it's great for their social media. So now on to the second portfolio review that I had just last year. The push for that process was all the lovely Spoonflower changes and the dawn of the AI era. I panicked and I decided to get an art agent. And the portfolio review was a part of this journey. So it was a US-based agent who I think only recently started offering paid reviews as a service. I watched some of her YouTube videos where she said that She does consultations with artists, and if she is interested in representing them, she does not charge them for the consultation. I was like, all right, let's see. It sounds like an interesting deal. I was ready to pay anyway, since, I was getting a paid service, but we'll get there. So I did not get a very favorable impression of that review for several reasons. But of course, it was a very useful learning experience, and it's good to get different experiences, not all positive, right? First of all, after I booked the consultation, I received an automatic confirmation, but there was no follow-up, no instructions, no questions, no questionnaires. I was like, are we good? Are we booked? What am I supposed to send? The good thing was that I did not have to pay in advance. That was very convenient for me. And I was hoping she wouldn't charge me, right? Because for the first one, I had to pay in full. So then, I reached out, introducing myself, explaining my questions. And the questions were, how can I play on my strengths with all my experience? What are my best career options at this point? Is agent representation a good option for me? And if she would be interested in representing me. This time, I decided not to wait, but to ask a straight question. There was silence, she didn't respond, but then after that a brief answer followed that she was out of office and we would connect tomorrow. So the next day we got on Zoom, and the first thing that struck me was that she didn't read my email. She started reading it in front of me, and obviously she didn't look at any of my links, my portfolio, Instagram. She started doing that, sharing her screen with me, and that threw me off a little bit. But I thought, it's a different experience. Agents are busy people. Maybe it's even good we're doing it this way, on the run, so to say, because that's probably how they go over our submissions. Not when I'm paying for it though, right? Everything was very quick. It lasted an hour. And from my previous experience, when I asked the most important questions in the last minutes, here I didn't wait, I asked them almost right away. So she didn't really elaborate on my career options. The only things she said were, consider exhibiting at print shows and find someone who teaches a course on how to promote your Shopify store. Even though that was my question to her, like how to promote Shopify store. She didn't give me any names. She sort of just threw an idea out there. And then she jumped straight into representation. She actually seemed to be quite in a hurry. I don't know, maybe that's her. Maybe that's her normal style. She said she could try representing me, which would mean that I would pay her $1,000 per year. And the general fee for full representation is $2,000. And she would take my artwork to print shows and show it to some of her clients to see if it works. A completely new thing for me to learn was that you as an artist have to pay for those printed sheets yourself, and it's around $3 per print. So if you are giving her 100 designs, you are also spending $300 in printouts. I can see, why you have to pay yourself, but I was a little bit surprised by the annual fee because I also do commercial modeling and acting, and I also have an agent, and there the agent doesn't make anything until they book you a photo or video shoot and you make something. So they don't charge you anything up front. So I think it's slightly controversial because it's very beneficial to her. Even if she doesn't sell any of my art, she has already made money off of me, the artist. She told me that she previously represented artists for free, like I said, with the actors' agents, but it didn't work in her favor, and she had some unpleasant situation with an artist where they had tried representation and the artist left and was unhappy and made some noise about her. I think she was afraid that I knew of the situation, maybe. I had no idea who she was talking about, but it did create, a certain impression. So I said I would think about it. It was, I was sort of excited because she wanted to represent me, trial period. But, it's one of those people who you talk to, everything goes fast, 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 and in the end you're like, what did just happen? So after the consultation was over, she said she was leaving for a while, and then I would think about it, and she also promised to get back to me, and even said she had a client in mind for some of my pieces. She was very secretive about it. I tried to ask questions. She's like, no questions. After that, I sent her a long thank you email, you know, thanks for her expertise and time and everything. She never responded or even reached back out to me. She only sent the invoice, you know, later on. And remember, she said that if she's interested in an artist, she doesn't charge them. I guess she wasn't that interested after all. Well, at least she didn't say it to me personally. I heard it in a video. So I decided it was too many red flags at once. You know, maybe we're not meant for each other. I chose not to reach out to her at the moment. I didn't feel comfortable with this sort of, you know, quick, superficial communication style. So these are the two very different personal experiences I've had with art agents. And remember, I said last year I was determined to find an art agent and I was looking for representation. So get comfortable, I'm going to tell you this story. So I've made two lists for myself: commercial agents and fine art agents for my watercolor artwork. Through some print studios, a couple, you know, here and there. It was about 15 agencies total, which is not a lot. I was very, very picky. I reached out first to that British agent that I had a consult with, and she responded very professionally, very fast as well, that she could not offer representation at the moment, but she would keep an eye on me and my art, which made me freak out a little bit. I was like, she's gonna watch me. But I really, really appreciate the transparency and professionalism. One of the big agencies I reached out to never responded to my email, but followed me on Instagram. I was like, okay. I received a couple no's, but mostly it was just silence. Another funny episode was that one of the fine art agencies kind of told me that my art wasn't traditional enough, even though I previously repeatedly received feedback that my art is very traditional and very old school. Go figure, right? So like I said, it was a very short list and I didn't really go full force in finding an agent. Getting those no's and the silence were definitely getting on my nerves, but in the end I decided to take a break from searching an agent. I guess you could say I failed, but I don't look at it that way. I'm an experienced artist and designer. I know my worth, I value my time, I know what I want, so I just don't grab at every single opportunity and don't let people take advantage of me. We'll see how it goes later on, you know, things can always change. So if I failed at securing an agent, it does not mean that you will as well. I have principles, I have my reasons for the way I do things, so please don't get discouraged. But I also want to encourage you to know your worth as well. Remember to honor your interests and preferences. Agents act and judge us from their perspective. They don't necessarily mean bad, but they also cannot see your big picture sometimes, and they don't care much about it. Do you have any experience to share about art agents? Would you like to find representation? Comment below. If you've enjoyed this lengthy video, I would appreciate your like. It's a free equivalent of instantly saying thank you. It's also a way of communicating because you're letting me know that you like this topic and I will make more of similar videos. Don't forget to subscribe and remember, artwork is everywhere.